So, as you all know, we are very, very pro Ukraine on this channel. And even though today I know everyone's eyes will be on, what's happening in the Middle East, I understand that. I have been watching what's been going on. We did a video talking about um, what Iran might do, of course, how America certainly feels embarrassed on the world stage after what Netanyahu did at the UN. Again, important to discuss. But I've said this, I think, on other channels. I have said this, I know, in conversation with other lefties. To us, the outcome of Ukraine is far, far, far more important than what happens in Gaza. Because what happens in Ukraine could have other far worse reaching consequences and could potentially start other wars, lead to more nuclear proliferation. I think Ukraine really is a lot bigger issue that I think a lot of needs to be paid attention to just as much as what is going on in the Middle East, if not more so for us Europeans. As I said, has a lot more troubling outcomes, especially for us. A lot more, shall we say, war outcomes, especially for us, which could lead to a lot of far bigger escalations. Not that, of course, escalation in the Middle East isn't also a problem, but you know, we're talking a lot of other big escalations, shall we say, that could come from this, especially North Korea, potentially China and Taiwan, Russia doing this again to another non-NATO country, potentially Georgia, maybe sort of testing the NATO alliance potentially in the future by taking a border town. All sorts of scenarios could be done by this if Putin feels emboldened by the result of this particular war. But today, I think what Russia has done here is deplorable, should be decried, because this is basically straight up poisoning water supplies for civilians, which is 100% against the Geneva Conventions, and is not only potentially deadly to sort of civilians, but the countryside, wildlife, nature itself often doesn't get thought about during war. But I think this highlights just what consequences war can have on wildlife, national parks, and a whole range of other things as well. So I think it's really, really important that this stuff does get talked about. So before we do go move on to talking about this stuff, please do remember to click on the like, share, and of course the subscribe button. There are links down below: the Patreon page, the Buy Me Coffee link, the YouTube thank you button, and of course the Patreon, the Pony Club down below as well. And of course, 'tis Wednesday, so there will be a Pony Club video for all our Patreon subscribers, and of course the Pony Club members as well. And if you join that, you get access to all the other videos and content that I've made for that as well. So let's crack on then into this. This comes from The Guardian with the title of "Everything is Dead." Again, a bit of a dramatic headline, I know, but hey, it's true. Ukraine rushes to stem ecocide after river poisoning. So Sulevi Kraso, pictured now picking up a twig and poked a very small fish floating in the Denza River. It's a roach. It died recently. You can tell because its eyes are now clear and not blurry, he said. Hundreds of other fish have now washed up on nearby rivers with green willow fringed banks. A large pike now lay in the mud nearby with a patch of yellow in its eyes. It was a completely motionless carp. Everything is dead, starting from the tiniest minnow to the biggest catfish, Carfo added mournfully. And that is the stuff that is going on here. And how did this happen? Well, we'll find out in a moment because, well, it's not a surprise who's behind this. Karsov is, of course, the mayor of Salbana. I hope I say that right. Ukraine's northern Chilfev in Chushev region, a rustic settlement populated by over 520 people. It escaped the worst of Russia's 2022 full-scale invasion, but the war arrived last week in a very new and horrible form. Ukrainian officials say that Russians have now deliberately poisoned the Stalium River, which flows into the Desna. The Desna connects now with a reservoir in the Kiev region and a water supply used by millions. So Russia here is now turning to means to deliberately harm civilian populations and cut off things like this. And once you do something like this isn't an issue that can be resolved overnight. This could take years to solve, especially if you are poisoning a water supply that is used by millions of people. That is incredibly worrying and something that we should be absolutely be calling out here. So, the toxic slick was detected now on the 17th of August coming from the Russian border village of Toykiv. According to Kiev, the chemical waste was from a sugar factory which had been dumping in now vast quantities into the Seine. This included ammonia, magnesium, and other poisonous nitrates. At the very same time, fierce fighting was going on in the surrounding area as Ukraine's armed forces had launched a surprise incursion into Russia and had seized territory in the Kursk Oblast. The population crossed the international the pollution crossed the international border just over a mile away and then made its way into Ukraine's Sumy region, with Siam's natural ecosystem completely crashed. Fish, mollusks, and crayfish were completely asphyxiated as oxygen levels fell to now to call the authorities, warning him of disaster that was coming his way. He then spotted the first dead fish on the 11th of September, where there were just a few of them in the middle of the river, he said. He then returned a following week to find the Dniester's banks now clogged with rotting fish and stretching for over 3 meters. Volunteers wearing rubber boots, masks, and even protective goggles shoveled fish into sacks. They found meter-long catfish. The stench was actually absolutely terrible. You could scarcely breathe. The river was quiet. Nothing moved from just apart from a few logs, Calver said. A tractor then took the sacks to an abattoir used to belong to the village's Soviet-era collective farm. They were then all buried in a pit. Shelfa Shirazukiv, the head of Chernovy's ecological inspectorate, described what had happened as an act of Russian ecocide. He said the Dzerza was one of our cleanest rivers. This is a very big catastrophe, said Zurich, as he traced the slick's route on the map pinned in his office wall. A looping multi-week journey along the Selma and Diezna, more than 650 kilometers, is now polluted. Not a single organism has survived. This is unprecedented. It is Europe's first completely dead river, he said. I think that is worth reminding people. That is truly shocking. This river is dead, and it is the only one in Europe that is now dead. And this could take years, decades to try and fix. And even worse, this isn't just a natural area. This connects to drinking water. So this could also have some very, very harmful effects on people as well. So this is ecocide committed by the Russians on a massive scale. A massive scale. I do believe this is something that should really, really be called out. But this is just something, is unfortunately becoming very much a daily occurrence now for many Ukrainians, unfortunately. But yeah, it needs to be called out more. The fact that this has happened, that you have Russia committed ecocide on a mass scale, and it's not just here as well. In fact, it goes on to other. Let me just find this other quote. So here's the other part. This is from Ukraine's environmental protection minister. She said the water consumption in Kiev did remain safe. Various special measures had been taken to get rid of the nitrates, he said, with 120 tons now of cleaning agents imported and nets now strung across the Desna to try and catch the dead fish. In the Kiev region, at least none had turned up. Additionally, water was now routinely purified before it was being extracted for household use, saying that we don't have at least a fish plague. Halsk said that this is now a latest episode, which was part of a very dismal pattern. Russian troops had destroyed national parks in occupied areas, killed animals, mined thousands of hectares of forest. Explosions then caused wildfires, a problem now exacerbated by the recent hot weather. Ukraine is fighting for its future, and that future has to include nature. We need clean water, we need clean air, woods, everything, she said. We have a very beautiful country, and we have to try and save and protect it. So, this is something that is happening, that the Russians are doing this, and that they are constantly doing this. This isn't just oh, the Russians have poisoned the water. It's not a first. They've done this to national parks. They've destroyed a lot of wildlife in and around Ukraine. And I think it should be definitely highlighted, and it should be added to the bill that Russia should have to pay at the end of this war to help rebuild Ukraine. I do believe this should be something we should be looking at, forcing Russia to pay reparations for all the damage it has done in Ukraine, because we've got all those frozen Russian assets. Hey, maybe Russia doesn't get all those back. Maybe that goes to Ukraine. Maybe we sit on those assets until, Russia actually, repays Ukraine for all the damage that it has caused in its country. So we'll see what happens, but I do get a sense and feeling that maybe next year something is going to happen. What that might be, I don't know. But as always, Russia continues to do these types of things in Ukraine, and you know we need to just stop tying Ukraine's hands. We need just to give them all the weapons, all the stuff that they need, and just let them get on with the job, because they have proved time and time again, as I keep on saying, when they get the weapons, when they get the equipment they need, they can get the job done. So, as always, thank you very much for watching, and of course, we'll see you all next time.